back! Don't come any closer or I'll jump!
No, please, I'm begging you! Hey everyone, Lucy and Tam here from Paris Games Week. We're here to talk about Detroit Become Human. So we saw behind closed doors demo, kind of a branching version of the trailer that was shown at the Sony press conference. Tam, what do you think?
I'm struggling to process my emotions regarding this game.
It's a weird one because you can't outright say, yeah, the domestic violence.
Yeah, it's great. It's domestic violence, but like it's
it
really
did its job
tricky
because it was.
Yeah, it was difficult to watch,
yeah.
And at the same time, what's tricky about it is like you have to play at this point at a preview stage. You have to kind of decide whether you want to place some faith in the team who are making the game to provide an experience or deal with that issue with sensitivity in the rest of the game.
Yes.
So we've seen a very limited slice of the game.
With little to no context as well,
yeah. And
which is incredibly important
in isolation, that was very difficult to watch during the stream, the original announce, and also in the second viewing we had of it. There's things about it that are troublesome to watch, like...
I think troublesome is a weird word because it kind of... troublesome appears like you're saying it's problematic. When in fact, I mean, we actually did talk to David Cage about this. And he was saying things like, you know, it's a collaboration storytelling between, especially in video games, between the creators and the audience. Yeah. And it kind of feels like if you don't tackle subjects like this, then where do video games go from this? Is there a cutoff about things that video games can and cannot talk about? So I, for one, am quite very interested and intrigued by this scene, particularly the one that they chose to show at Paris Games Week. They said that it was particularly that scene because it could be standalone. Yeah. And of course it did have a heavy emotional impact.
Yeah. So like troublesome, I use that phrase because for myself, it was difficult to figure out how to feel about it. And what we came to was we have to place that trust in David Cage and his team to create the context that we were lacking in this moment outside of it that will make that one scene make sense and have value beyond shock value. Again, like in the moment, the stuff that we saw was powerful and it was difficult uncomfortable, and that's kind of the point, right? And like it deals with human emotions and like the idea
through the lens of an android as well,
of someone that's non-human. And the whole point of the story is androids trying to gain some sort of humanity and become their own, you know, people almost. And you do that by experiencing these powerful emotions. And one of those powerful emotions is empathy and dread and horror and feeling powerless and that kind of stuff. So in that respect, it did its job and it did it well. I felt angry, I felt sad, I felt bad for the kid, and I hated Todd in that moment. Yeah. So like, it clearly has the potential to affect, which is I guess what we want out of it. And like I said, I've said a bunch of times, we just gotta hope that they are capable and have the expertise to provide the necessary context and make that stuff matter.
Context is everything.
Context is everything. But we also you played specifically an older demo.
I played so the hostage negotiation, which I think was from E3, but it was my first time actually getting hands-on with Detroit. And I felt like, so when we were watching the behind the scenes, behind closed doors of the Kara, Todd, Alice scene, there's obviously a lot more going on because it's, it's a fight scene, you're quickly reacting to things, whereas the scene I was playing was quite sedate. You were doing an investigation, you were going, you were trying to save a child who was being held hostage by an android who was feeling very emotional. It was a lot of tensions running high, and so it was nice to be able to kind of experience those two different sides of the story. The exciting's a difficult word to use, but the high octane part, as well as the slow, methodical. There was also kind of like Batman Arkham Origins, the crime scene stuff piecing together, which is really cool. And also just the way that you could stack the odds in your favor. The thing obviously with Detroit, as with all Quantic Dream games, is there's many options, different ways that things can play out. And what was cool is they showed you multiple ways that things could play out. There were a lot of branches that were locked as well, so you can, it clearly encourages you to go back and replay
It kind of gives you a full flow chart of all the things that can happen, and by having things locked, you can kind of like reverse engineer it to deduce how you'd get to that thing.
Which is very cool.
It's difficult to say what degree they are different from each other. There could be like minute differences, but who knows?
I can't stand that noise anymore! Tell that helicopter to get out of here!
The situation is under control.
So yeah, I'm hesitant to say that I'm excited about it.
Yes.
Given, you know, it requires the actual broader game experience, the overall game to be treated with some sensitivity and kind of like make all the harrowing things that happen in that game have meaning. And until that happens, like, I can't like just be like, yeah, I'm well up for it, yeah.
Yeah, it's
but
difficult.
I'm glad that someone is trying it and trying to tackle these issues. I'm not surprised that it's getting some backlash, but movies have done it, literature has done it, TV shows have done it. It makes sense for games to do it. I think the tricky thing is it's a blockbuster game that's doing it, which is why it's earning a lot more kind of like attention. If it was an indie game, it would be less of a deal.
If it was an indie game, it would be lauded for tackling these things, but because it's AAA, there seems to be some pushback. But I would love to be able to say, you know, spring 2018, when we've played the whole game, that Detroit does what it's setting out to do.
Also, like, it is, people are obviously giving some backlash to it because it is David Cage and Quantic Dreams, and some people have their opinions. Everyone has their opinions on them. Some people love them. Some people think they're not as good writers with some of these bits. They have plot holes, so there's some hesitance because of that stuff, and that is understandable.
That's a legitimate concern.
I'm on that side. I also have that concern, but for now, we're just going to have to hope that they're able to do it justice.
All right, well, for more on Detroit, make sure you keep your eyes peeled to GameSpot.com.
Video games.
Legitimate art.